Hi, and we're live. We started a little late because we just conducted 2 interviews. They were with Kevin Starrett from Oregon's Firearms Federation and Luke Wagner from the Colorado Second Amendment Association. We'll have to paste those into our podcast so the YouTube listeners miss those. I'm sorry. I would like to give a shout out right off for ABN Surplus, Concealment Solutions, Crusader Weaponry, the New Jersey Second Amendment Society, and the Firearms Safety Institute. They pay the bandwidth so that you can listen to us. Are we ready to cut this opening?
Yep. It looks like
I think so.
I'm the lead off.
Go for it, John.
Okay, in 5.
Do we all sound about the same volume?
I think y'all two sound about the same volume to me. Am I good?
You're good for me.
Okay, there we go. We'll go with it.
Let's do it.
Alrighty, in 5. Welcome to the Polite Society podcast, recorded live on Wednesday, July 23rd, 2014. I'm John Richardson.
I'm Rachel Malone, and on tonight's show, we'll talk with Kevin Starrett from the Oregon Firearms Federation.
I'm Rob Morse, and we'll talk with Luke Wagner of the Colorado Second Amendment Association.
And we'll also have an update from Kyle Copeland of the Armed Citizen Project, in addition to our usual news and DGUs. So, climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 254 of the Polite Society podcast starts right now. I miss that music now when Paul's not here. Like sitting here waiting for it.
We've heard it so many times we hear it even when it's not there.
This is true. This is true. And I don't even hear it as much as you guys because I'm always gone on Saturdays. Oops.
And I tipped my microphone up. Okay. John, you pull us back because you wrote yours in first.
Already?
And you have the biggest news too. I mean.
Well, yeah.
Well, I would call that the most significant.
Definitely.
Well, on the other, wait a minute, Rachel, you've been awfully busy too.
Yeah, I have been. Yeah, I definitely have a full house. I've got like 7 people here right now, but it's cool.
Whoa! How about? Are we allowed to ask how? Now, is it you call him your kid? Is this your little brother or what?
Yeah, my kid is my little brother, but I'm raising him as my kid, and then I also have.
I understand, but you took him out to Appleseed, so.
Yeah.
You didn't.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. Yeah, I forgot. He's the one who actually dragged me there.
Well, figuratively.
Yes. Well,
okay.
Kind of almost, yeah.
almost physically.
Yes.
Okay. Whenever, John.
Okay, in 5. Hi, and welcome back to the personal news segment of the Polite Society podcast. Since I've been gone for the last 2 podcasts, I guess I've got a little bit of catching up to do. Last Wednesday, I got to tour PTR Industries plant in Ainer, South Carolina. They are the manufacturers of the PTR 91 rifle, which is the American version of the Heckler Koch 91. Which is also the civilian version of the G3 rifle. I was able to interview Chris Peterson of PTR for a later episode, and as soon as I get that cleaned up, we'll have that. I also got to shoot their PTR 32 Gen 1 that was kind of a prototype plus in 7.62 by 39. They're trying to make sure that it would work with virtually any magazine. And then in other news, Barb and I got married. If you read my blog, you may have heard me refer to the complimentary spouse. Now, Barb is now more than just the complimentary spouse.
Congratulations,
Well,
John.
gosh, congratulations.
Thank you.
That is the best excuse to miss the podcast I've
Yeah,
heard.
absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think we're ever going to top that kind of news exactly that way, but
Well,
that's awesome.
we just never know.
That's great.
So I guess you have some news, Rachel.
Yeah, well, I had another fairly busy week, and yeah, I missed a couple of podcasts, so I have some catching up to do. I had a house full this past week. I've got a few friends visiting, so I've spent a lot of time just keeping meals rolling for my household, taking care of the kids. We got some babies here, but I did still find some time for gunpowder and lead because you don't want to leave that out of the picture completely. So I'll admit, last Saturday I was so tired. I honestly didn't even feel like getting up and going to the range. But I'd promised my kid that I would take him to an Appleseed, and he's been absolutely begging to ever since I took him to his first one last month. He can't wait to get rifleman, and he's doing great. He's a new shooter, but he's absolutely determined. He's doing wonderful. And the night before, he actually pulled me in and said, "Okay, we are going to dry fire." And he probably spent at least 45 minutes, maybe an hour, dry firing just to get ready for this Appleseed, practicing his positions. He was practicing his mag changes, his transitions. It was awesome. He was just doing great. So we went to Appleseed in Waco, and I got to instruct. It was so nice not to have to be a shoot boss, just a regular old instructor. I really enjoyed that, actually. A little more low-key. And he didn't get his rifleman patch. He still is going to work on that. It's not something you can get easily, but he got pretty close. I think his high score was a 195, which for being a new shooter at your second Appleseed is not bad at all.
No.
So especially because both these are one-day events. So he's doing great. Next time I think he's going to just smash it. And the cool thing that I got to do, I actually got to do a little bit of shooting too. One of the participants there had a really cool gun he brought, his K31, and he let me shoot a few rounds through it. So gotta say I definitely loved it.
It looked like an old Mosin Nagant. What is it? What is it, John?
It's a Swiss Schmidt-Rubin K31 in 7.5 by 55.
There
wow.
you go.
With a straight pull bolt.
Yes.
I have about 5.
You do? Man, well you should just send me your extra or something.
Well, I picked them up when they were $88.
He didn't say there were any
word.
extra. He just said he had 5 of them.
My word. Yeah, that's true. Wow.
And I'm actually looking for their long carbine 1911, which I hear is a really, really accurate rifle. And the K31 is accurate as well.
Oh, yeah.
Gun geeks. I love them. Whatever he said.
Yep. So what have you been up to, Rob?
I've got almost no news. I was back east. I think I texted you from the airport.
Yes,
Rachel.
you did, and I waved at you.
I was in. My version of Texas was sitting in Dallas Fort Worth Airport, smelling freedom and jet fuel in the air. That was about as close as I got. But this weekend I'll probably shoot IDPA, and tomorrow I'm going to drag a bunch of guys together to do a bunch more CERT training.
Cool.
So that ought to be fun. Now that's the laser pistol, not the civilian emergency response team. So yeah. Anyway.
Good clarification.
Yep.
Okay. If that's it, we'll take a break with this advertisement and then come back with the news.
Sounds good.
And I believe we need to assign some stuff here.
Yes, we sure do.
Yeah, it would be. Anybody see anything well, you laid into some of these, John.
I did the Beretta one.
I think this first one is actually the coolest piece of good news around. So
Do you want to take it if you're all fired up about it?
Yeah. Phil, you know how periodically we'll read about Chicago getting thumped with a lawsuit?
Yeah.
So it's Philadelphia's turn.
Yes, absolutely.
Rachel, do you want to
Mhm.
talk about the open carry in Kansas City?
I'm happy to do that. I probably wouldn't say that second paragraph that you have there. You can say that. I can give my take on it.
Okay, we'll
That
split it
works?
then. Yep.
Sounds good. That works for me.
And then you, Rachel's rebuttal.
Maybe and maybe not. I just might agree with what you say. It depends.
I gave John for better. How would you like? Yeah, that
I'll
puts.
do
No, hold on.
Missouri. I have relatives there.
Okay, great.
I have in-laws
Where-
there.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So to keep you from. Okay. We don't have a gun quote. Shall we skip it?
Ooh.
You want to? Should we dig one up?
Ooh. There's so many good ones that I see all the time, and I need to grab them.
Polite said I can always go to 101 of the best gun quotes ever. Where that doesn't belong there. There, Buckeye Firearms. That's the one I want. Ooh. Oh.
Did you find something? Yeah. What'd you get?
Is Mike Adams the guy who wrote the? John, is he the guy in Carolina?
He's a professor at UNC Wilmington.
Yeah.
Professor of criminal justice.
My wife met him.
Mm-hmm.
I just read an autographed copy of his book.
Cool.
Okay, so here's we could use this if you want from Mike Adams. Rachel, you win the gun quote lottery.
Okie doke. Got it.
Oh, so do we have to? Okay, well, will you guys flip a coin? One of you take YouTube and one take.
I'll do YouTube.
Live.
Yeah. I can do the Q&A here.
Okay. Then we're ready to do the news.
Yay.
Any questions that we should talk about before we march on?
Looks like it's all in order. I think we're ready to roll.
No, I meant, did we get any listener comments?
Oh,
We
nope.
started late, so I'd be surprised.
No,
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have any on YouTube.
Here, 5 seconds. Hi, and welcome back. Let's start right off with some good news for the right of self-defense. Philadelphia just lost a large court case because they infringed on the rights of legal gun owners. The city was ordered to pay $1.42 million as well as the cost of administering the legal settlement. The settlement runs to 11 pages, but here are some of the highlights. Philadelphia agrees not to disclose license to carry firearms applicant information, either electronically or in person. The police department agrees to annual training for the License and Inspection Board and for the gun permit unit. This city agrees to post a copy of the application process on their website. This includes license applications and the application appeal process. The city must also submit a copy of the licensed appeal process to anyone who has their license denied or revoked. Philadelphia can no longer require let me start that part over. Philadelphia can no longer either require or contact character references from license applicants. The city will not ask if applicants already own a firearm. The city will not confiscate a license or a firearm from a licensee unless there is probable cause that they are needed as evidence of a crime. If they are confiscated, then the officer must immediately provide a property receipt, which shall include the pertinent information for their return. You know, all those things sound so straightforward, it's really frightening to imagine that they weren't being done before. This is a great day for civil rights in Philadelphia. What makes it even better for me is that this decision must really irritate the Pennsylvania Attorney General, and that's a good thing.
I don't know the whole backstory on this positive turn of events, but as you're reading this off, I couldn't help but think one thing. This happened because somebody got off the couch and did something.
Yeah. Somebody earned this lawsuit, and they got the lawsuit they deserved.
That's right. That's right. You never know what wonderful positive results might happen when you get up and do something. And your results might not be as big, but definitely can guarantee you're not going to get results like this by doing nothing. So good for whoever got up and did something.
There you go.
Not so positive news that I'm reporting from Chicago, our weekly death toll that we give. This last weekend, 40 people were shot and 4 were killed in the gun control paradise of Chicago. Chicago politicians somehow find it in themselves to blame weak gun laws. I'm not quite sure where they're getting that. But the real cause are the drug gangs who feed on social policies that resulted in broken families and economic policies that destroy jobs. Chicago politicians have company.
Yeah, we often report on New York City right along with Chicago. But for some reason, all the web searches that I do for murders in New York City in July come up absolutely empty. I wonder what's going on there. So I called the New York Deputy Commissioner of Public Information and I spoke to his office. They said I needed that my request, since I was interested in particular dates, had to be submitted by email. So I did. I sent them an email request for information about this weekend's statistics. How many shooting reports did they have in, and how many murders could they confirm, or shooting deaths? They didn't answer. We're waiting.
No big surprise there.
I'd like to be pleasantly surprised. They just make it hard.
They do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a really sobering thing. I'm glad we report on this death toll because it can become so commonplace to us. We don't think anything of it. But yes, people are shot and killed because of these gun control laws. I mean, you sit there and you imagine, a bell ringing for each person. You imagine this. This is real.
This is real.
And it's tragic. it's not about winning a game, for gun rights. It's about life and death. It's about liberty. It's about so much more than just winning a little something.
Yep. Well, the next story is about, given this is an election year, we get a lot of ridiculous bills get passed, and then some reasonable bills never make it to even a voting committee. A recent case in point is the writer to a congressional bill written by Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky. Massie is optimistic about Senate support for the language he attached that would dismantle the local gun laws in the District of Columbia, which you should remember is a federal enclave, and so therefore Congress can do that. The congressman is realistic enough to doubt the measure will ever reach the Senate floor for a vote. He says, quote, 20 rank-and-file Democrats in the House voted for the amendment, and I know Democrats in the Senate would vote for the amendment. But I suspect Harry Reid will do everything he can to prevent that vote from happening. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid did not respond to questions about Massie's pro-gun proposal. Neither did some of the vulnerable Democratic senators from conservative states, senators such as Alaska's Mark Begich, Louisiana's Marielle Landrieu, and my own, very own, North Carolina's own, Kay Hagan. Massie's amendment would likely have a Senate sponsor in Kentucky Republican Rand Paul.
Yeah, I'd like to. There's a lot of bills I'd like to see how people would vote, and that's probably one of the reasons that
you never will.
I never will. Harry Reid won't let me find out.
This is true. That's definitely what tactic they use, is to keep something from even coming up for a vote. But
boy, says the voice of experience.
No kidding. Yeah, I actually had to go look this one up, because D.C. is just so different than a state. And yes, this legislation would wipe out the local gun laws in D.C. and make D.C. subject only to federal firearm restrictions, and that's really a big thing.
Well, who was I just talking to? Jeff Knox and John Pierce. D.C.'s gun laws are designed so that you and I cannot comply with them. Remember the freedom of travel law, that if you move from one place where a firearm is legal to another, D.C. says, no, that doesn't apply to us. You have to register your gun here, but we won't let you, so just don't come in. If you're a gun owner, just don't come in the district. I mean, Chief Lanier has said that face-to-face to people.
Well, look at all the trouble Emily Miller went through.
Yes.
Which turned somebody who was, just, I want to get a gun, into a staunch Second Amendment advocate.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
Well, here's an issue that even gun rights supporters disagree on. A man open carrying a gun in South Kansas City Walmart store alarmed shoppers early Monday. Yes, shoppers were frightened, even though open carry is legal. A customer in the store called police to report the man, and the customer also reported the incident to the store manager. The store manager then asked the armed shopper to take his gun back to his car. The gun owner was doing that when the police arrived. Kevin Jamison of the Western Missouri Shooters Alliance said that while open carry is legal, it doesn't mean it's always a good idea. Rob, I think you had some comments on this one.
I did. I don't think that okay, I haven't seen the picture. I wasn't there. But we just conducted the customer survey. Who likes this and is motivated by it, and who does it frighten? Now, it could have been only one person in the entire store was concerned. I doubt that. But that's the sort of balancing test you want to think about before you say this is how you want to publicly advocate for open carry. An ounce of our good intentions are way outweighed by a ton of bad press. And let me say this again, I support open carry. I've done open carry, but it doesn't matter how we see open carry. It matters how our audience sees it. And in that battle for hearts and minds, your audience gets a vote, and you and I really don't, because it's their opinion we're trying to change. You and I have seen some of the things that struck me strongest. Like county fairs, and someone has a display booth. The people are well dressed, they're articulate, they're handing out literature. There are some people in the back of the booth open carrying, and you go, you're using it. Oh, what's this about? Oh, well, we're lobbying to change legislation because this gun is harmless and we've criminalized its appearance. Rachel, you've seen what works and what doesn't.
Yes.
I bet the gunpowder and lace work. Boy, I wish I could talk. Your recent gunpowder and lace walk had an entirely different feel than a bunch of guys, dressed in cutoffs and camo and carrying ARs.
Yes. This is definitely a huge issue here in Texas right now with everything that's going on with so many different open carry movements and so much going on with legislation. And I've spoken somewhat on this before, but first of all, I think it's, as gun owners and gun rights supporters, when we're commenting on stories, it's important to know the facts. A lot of times the press misreports things, or because we've seen one picture, we're imagining that any other open carry story looks like that when it really doesn't. On the other hand,
that's a great point. That's a great point.
Another point that brings up is, even if that person there was doing everything right and looked completely different than pictures we've seen publicized, that's the first thing your mind jumps to because of others' slip-ups or mistakes. So we can't control what other people do, obviously, but we can control what we do, and what we do is going to reflect on them. So we each individually need to be careful how we present ourselves. And remember, one little slip-up, one holding your gun in a way that even looks slightly unsafe while somebody snaps a picture, that can cost you so much. And yes, we are ambassadors, and that's important to remember. On the other hand, you can't always please everybody, and you're not usually going to affect radical change without some kind of radical action. So because of that, I do support open carry in Texas. I do support open carriers who go on walks and, in a way, just throw out something radical that people aren't necessarily comfortable with. But I think it's important to be very careful how you do that, and that's why I work with the organization I do, which is CADI. I like their policies. They don't. I'll just mention they don't go into into businesses without specific permission. I think that's a good positive step that they take. But yeah, there's a time to make people slightly uncomfortable if you can do it in a winsome way, and make sure you're there to help them understand it's not a bad thing. It is a balancing act.
Amen to that.
We're trying to sell our ideas. Amen.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, continuing on with gun rights news out of Missouri, the first Tuesday in August is almost here. You may remember that Missouri Governor Jay Nixon vetoed a number of pro-gun bills after the legislative session that were passed in the recent legislature.
I can't hear John.
No, I can't either. I'm still seeing him.
He's looking down.
Now.
Yep.
There we go.
You leaned forward and muted yourself, buddy.
Yeah.
I need to tape that thing over. Let me start over.
Let's start.
Yeah, go for it.
Susan, fix it here.
Then 5. The first Tuesday in August is almost here. You may remember that Missouri Governor Jay Nixon vetoed a number of pro-gun bills after the legislative session passed. There was also a proposed state constitutional amendment placed on the Missouri ballot. The amendment added language protecting ammunition and accessories typical to the normal function of our firearms. The amendment recently survived a challenge in the state Supreme Court, so Missouri voters may get a say in the right to bear arms after all. The amendment gets voted on in the August 5th election. Missouri gun owners and their friends, get active.
You know, I see some parallels between this legislation and what we've seen in California. Now, that's quite a stretch to draw parallels between Missouri and California gun laws, but their amendment is trying to say the right to keep and bear arms includes ammunition. Because if you make it illegal for your citizens to buy ammunition, you've infringed the rights of self-defense. The right, oh, it's not an arm, it's magazines, it's a scope, it's a stock, but those are components. That's not an arm. So what? The point being that a state could infringe on the right to buy everything but the receiver, because that isn't legally a firearm. No, they're trying to protect that, and I appreciate their efforts. I wish they were. I wish we had them over here on the left coast.
Absolutely. What I find most interesting about it is that the vote is on August 5th.
Yeah.
August is a weird time to have summer vacations. I'm going to have to. Normally, you're going to.
The governor did that on purpose.
You can have it in November.
Yeah.
I'm going to alert my relatives in the state of Missouri as a result of this.
Please. Rachel, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. We reported several personal attacks at Target department stores since the company asked customers and staff to disarm. Here is the first reported murder on Target property since their disarmament press release. The disarmed victim was part of a night cleaning crew. The victim was shot and transported to a local hospital where he died. The assailant was a known gang member and later tested positive for being high on bath salts. And all I can say here is, well, first, my biggest condolences and to the victim's family members, and also to Target. If that's the policy you're going to enact, this is what you're liable for.
Yeah, I hate it when a gun-free zone fails and people die.
Me too.
Amen. Well, Beretta USA announced on Tuesday that they plan to move all production to their new plant in Tennessee. Previously, the new plant in Gallatin, Tennessee was intended only for new production lines. Beretta USA said the reason for this was due to Maryland passing such draconian gun laws in 2013 and the anticipation that it will only get worse. Their production of the Army's M9 pistol will still continue in Maryland until all current orders are filled. They will leave their administrative, executive, and import offices in their Accokeek, Maryland location. And given that it's just outside of D.C., I could see that they're doing that probably because they're working, with defense contractors.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Maybe Army procurement offices in the district, something like that.
Exactly.
Well, we have to admit we're a little late in getting out this news, but I love getting credit when law enforcement gets it right. In Ohio, the Union Township Police Department will host a gun safety class for children ages 6 through 13. Now, the 2-hour training class starts at 10 a.m. on Sunday, July 19th, which is the date this podcast will first air. So we're talking about history, but this is great news. We're trying to teach kids, make kids safe by removing a fear and fascination with firearms and replace it with facts. The class covers the nomenclature and safe handling of handguns, shotguns, and rifle. It does not include any live fire training. Donuts, coffee, and juice will be provided. I suspect the coffee's for the adults.
The that's great. You know, I love the fact we started this show on a positive note, or the news section, and we're ending the news section on another positive note. Always good to have good news.
There you go.
And Rob told me I won the lottery for the gun quote. So here we go. The extremist has at least two things in common with the Islamic extremist. He has a willingness to die for his fundamental beliefs, and he has the sanctimony to demand that others go with him. That's from Dr. Mike Adams, and isn't that the sobering truth?
Well, I get to brag that my wife met Professor Adams last weekend. They were at a conference together.
Cool.
Hang
And
on,
I get to brag that he's from North Carolina.
Well, in that case, since you've earned that bragging rights, you take us out, John.
Alrighty, hang on everybody. We'll be right back after this advertisement from Concealment Solutions.
Cool.
Are y'all still there? Am I still here?
Yep,
Okay.
you are.
Sorry. My internet's kind of, I don't know if my voice was breaking up at all, but Rob's was for me.
Oh.
I think it's my internet, but I'm not positive. So I cut my camera. Maybe that'll help.
Okay. We did have a comment on YouTube from Dayrider76. Says he was in Walmart the other day and he was printing horribly. And on his way out, he passed a cop. Didn't even get stopped.
Sweet.
And he also said good evening.
Well, hi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 2 each.
That works. I like the variety we have in the DGUs. I mean, I feel like it's a lot of different things to think through.
Cool.
Not that I ever like having, a DGU that ends up with somebody getting shot, but
Right.
or somebody getting attacked.
Oh, I bet you want. Do you want the one out of San Antonio, or can I give it to
It doesn't
John?
matter. You can give it to John. That's fine. I can always comment on it if I want. So.
That's it.
Cool.
Okay. Okay. Rachel, you want to take us back in and we'll get the DGUs wrapped up?
Sure. Let's do it. All right. Coming back in 5. Welcome back to the Polite Society podcast. I hope you enjoyed those interviews with Kevin Sturut. Sorry, what's his name? Kevin Sturret. Let's try that again. Almost right. Coming back in 5.
Did you lower your mic?
Didn't try to. Did it fall down? Is this better?
I should look at it. Yeah, no, because it's your old picture. I can't see.
It sounds better.
Sounds
better.
Is
it better? Are we good? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try to keep it there. Okie doke. Are we ready?
Yes.
Coming back in 5. Welcome back to the Polite Society podcast. Hope you enjoyed those interviews. I sure did. Enjoyed hearing what Kevin Starrett from Oregon had to say, as well as Luke Wagner from Colorado. Make sure you check out their websites. They're doing good work. We're moving on to our DGU segment where we talk about defensive gun use. Bad choices sometimes have a happy ending, but there might be more to this story. This home break-in occurred in Carrick, Pennsylvania. It was 2 a.m. when two men fired through the front door of an apartment building and forced their way inside. A 19-year-old man and a 17-year-old woman were in the building at the time. The intruders forced the man into the side bedroom where the homeowner kept a loaded shotgun. Lucky for him. Both intruders were shot. One died at the scene. The second intruder fell down the steps and was taken to UPMC Mercy Hospital. His condition is unknown.
Rachel, what do you say about guessing right?
Carry 24/7 or guess right. I guess this man got lucky, was pushed into the room where his gun was, but man, can you imagine the different ending if he'd been pushed into a different side bedroom? I don't even want to imagine that.
No.
Yeah. Well, something to learn from this DGU.
Absolutely.
Sometimes there is no good solution. 40-year-old John Mapp attacked his 38-year-old sister. The crime took place around 3:40 a.m. in West Philadelphia. Mapp then attacked his 34-year-old younger brother. His younger brother is a paraplegic, but remained physically strong enough to pull out his handgun and protect himself. He shot his older brother once in the chest. John Mapp was taken by police to the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania, where he was pronounced dead. The sister was also taken to the same hospital for her injuries.
This DGU, for me, brings out two interesting issues that we could discuss. First, there are millions of physically disabled individuals who are attacked each year, and some of these disabled can defend themselves. Firearms are the great equalizer, not just for women, which is always foremost on my mind, because I feel myself more vulnerable as a woman, but also for the disabled, for elderly. So here we have a disabled man who is still able to defend himself and his sister. The other issue this brings is, this is a family violence issue, and those are tricky. Those are, you've got all sorts of emotional havoc going on here. I can't even begin to imagine exactly what that would feel like. But even in that kind of situation, use of force laws still apply.
Yes, they do. This reminds me of my friend Kurt Hoffman, who's the St. Louis Gun Rights Examiner, got active in gun rights politics. He lived in Illinois. He's a paraplegic confined to a wheelchair due to a bad auto accident, and he just wanted the ability to defend himself.
That's right.
And finally, he does get that ability to defend himself, thanks to thanks to the courts in Illinois.
Rachel, you brought up use of force laws or factors. One of the things that I understood about the duty to retreat meant in a confrontation, and most confrontations are physical rather than involving firearms, it's hard to tell who shoved first, who took the first punch, but if you were both required to take a step back, then it was clear that someone took the step forward. Well, we have a duty to retreat when you're in a wheelchair. What does that mean? I mean, very few people attack someone else from a wheelchair. I'm sure it's happened somewhere, but in a wheelchair, it's hard to advance aggressively.
This is true.
And a lot.
In Texas, a law states that a finder of fact may not even consider whether the actor failed to retreat, because we're not required to retreat. But I know that's radically different in different states, and that's an issue that the wheelchair issue brings up, interesting thoughts.
It also brings up disparity of force.
Yes.
Right.
In
Very
that,
much.
even though we don't know whether the brother who was the attacker was armed or not, but it really doesn't matter when you're attacking somebody who is actually in a wheelchair and is a paraplegic.
Right.
There is that disparity of force.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The older brother didn't need physical force to defend himself from the younger. That is a pretty clear statement.
Yeah.
On to the next DGU. Phyllis Law's home had been broken into before. That's why some of the windows were already boarded up in this Pritchard, Alabama home. Phyllis heard the thieves pry open another one of her windows. This time, she told her granddaughter to hide in the closet. The 63-year-old grandmother wanted the thieves to leave, but they turned on the lights and began to inventory her home again. This time, she was armed with a 9mm handgun. She fired when one of the thieves entered her back bedroom. She fired again, and one thief was struck in the head. Despite their wounds, both thieves were able to flee. Later, when the police arrived, they briefly handcuffed Phyllis Law. She was released on the scene. The juvenile victim and his accomplice, meaning the thieves, hard to really describe them as victims, were arrested by police. The wounded teen survived his wounds. Now, Phyllis keeps her shotgun near her bedroom door.
I probably would too.
A hot burglary? Ah, come on, fellas.
Exactly. Our next DGU is a Good Samaritan story from Wisconsin, and this one strikes pretty close to home for me, and I'll tell you why after I finish telling you the story. An innocent man was walking his dog when 3 pit bulls escaped from their backyard and charged at him. Dennis Williams lived nearby, and he heard the victim scream for help. Williams saw the attack through his window and ran to help. He tried to stop the attacking dogs with a baseball bat. I'll quote him. "It was one of the worst things I've ever witnessed. The dogs were on top of the man and his dog. They were not going to stop. I first tried hitting the pit bulls with the baseball bat, but they wouldn't relent. There was blood all over the ground." Close quote. Williams drew his handgun and killed one of the pit bulls. The other dogs then backed away. The man and dog who were attacked required treatment for severe bite and puncture wounds. This strikes kind of close to home because I've actually been attacked by a pit bull, or charged by a pit bull, very close to an attack. This happened back when I was probably 12 or 13. And it was actually in my yard. There was a neighbor who was watching a pit bull who got loose and ran over and started attacking me, or charging me rather. And I was able to get away without being actually attacked. I didn't realize at the time it was a pit bull. I remember being so frightened that, I had tunnel vision. I wasn't thinking exactly. All I knew was that I was definitely in danger. People tell me I'm intimidating. All I did was yell at the pit bull. Was my best yell, and he kind of stopped in his tracks and just gave me barely enough time to sprint inside and get inside with my sister, my younger sister, whom I was watching outside. But that could have been really messy if that dog had decided to attack. And nobody around us, definitely nobody in my home, had a firearm or a method of fending off that attack.
I think a lot of it goes to pit bulls in and of themselves are not mean and vicious. It's how people have trained them to be. Because I've seen some that are about as sweet as can be, and then others that you want to have at least bear spray.
Yes. And this same pit bull actually went and attacked another boy and did actually attack him the next week. So, scary situations. I'm glad that man was there.
Yeah.
Rachel, you describe a fascinating situation. It's absolutely typical to imagine maybe a 16-year-old older sister watching her younger sibs.
Yes.
In some states it would be against the law for her to use a firearm to defend herself and her brothers and sisters.
Yes, that's true.
So
Texas does have this cool law that says if yes, it's illegal for an adult to give access to a child, but if that child uses a firearm legally in self-defense, that's a cause for defense. Basically, they're off the hook at that point. But not all states have that law, and that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, speaking of Texas, this San Antonio, Texas homeowner had been robbed before. This time, a 20-year-old man broke into the home of a 70-year-old man who was ready for him. After the intruder broke through a back window, the 70-year-old homeowner used his handgun to shoot the intruder 3 times in the leg. Paramedics transported the intruder to the hospital, and he is expected to survive. Most importantly, the homeowner was not expected to face charges, according to police.
That's gotta hurt.
You get shot in the leg in the right spot, you can bleed out.
Ooh, well, yeah, I'm just thinking, well, Rachel, you just had a foot injury.
Yeah. That definitely didn't get shot, and it still hurt quite a bit.
Well, just remember, what do they say about any injury? Oh, keep it elevated for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. 2 home invaders in Jackson, Mississippi thought that 2:30 in the morning was a good time for a robbery. They thought wrong. Jongas Porter, 19, is now dead, and his accomplice, Romello Porter, suffered a wound to the leg as the homeowner fought back. Police have not identified the homeowner, but had this to say about the incident. You're entitled to have a weapon in your home, and certainly you're entitled to defend yourself and your home. From all we know, this is what the homeowner did, said the police. Assistant Police Chief Lee Vance added, the deceased suffered the consequences that come sometime when you break into somebody's house. You know,
did he ever?
To you and I, that sounds severe. But how alert are you at 2:30 a.m.? No, you're being woken up in your home by an intruder.
Absolutely. It's like Paul always says, nothing ever good happens after midnight.
Yeah. I'm sorry they died.
Well, folks, this wraps up our DGU section. Hope that provides some food for thought as you consider how you can protect yourselves and your families. We have the links to each of our news and defensive gun use articles at politesocietypodcast.com, and we encourage you to share those with a friend. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this message from New Jersey Second Amendment Society.
Oh, you know what? We got an email just before we went on the air.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, one from Zach Esposito on air. It came in this afternoon. Zach, you just made it on the podcast. I can't type worth poo today. No, I'm going to give this to John so that, John, you can ask me, and I'll ask you. John, do you have anything on your podcast, or have you been too busy celebrating recently?
I've had too much family around. We put some in, left just this morning, so.
They went to Rachel's. That's why things are so crazy.
Yeah, I got to say, Rachel, when I look at your picture with your microphone up by your eye, it looks like you have dark, smoky eye makeup on one eye and not the other.
Yeah.
It's the Borg look.
Yep. Yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? That's
her younger sibs really like it.
Oh, yeah. No, I think I'm intimidating enough without it. You ask them.
Is that the older sister scowl you're talking about, intimidation?
Yeah, apparently I have this death stare that will make anybody do anything, and that I never even knew about until somebody just kind of randomly mentioned it.
It's not working down the internet here, hon. I'm sorry.
It happens when I need it, I think.
There you go. Fortunately, she's not pushed into that corner very often. Okay, shut up, Rob. John. No. Rachel. Cool. We ready to do this? Yep. Oh, did you guys check
if there are any
comments?
Okay. I haven't had anything pull up on mine.
I had Dayrider wrote in to say that, quote unquote, pits are crazy. Mine is a sweetheart. My brother-in-law's, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, John, you're leading us in.
Alrighty, in 5. Hi, and welcome back to the Polite Society Podcast, Show Close segment. We only have one email this week, and it's from Zach Esposito. Hey guys, love the show and heard you were looking for feedback on what works and doesn't work. I want to say my favorite parts are the DGU discussions because they give me examples to provide to others who do not yet appreciate the necessity of the right to own and carry a firearm. Thanks for all your work, Zach Esposito. Thank you, Zach. We appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, and anybody else, feel free to write in as well. I'd like to remind you all that the Polite Society download app is out on Amazon for Android, and the iPhone app is in iTunes. It's called Podcast Box. You can search for them by our old name, which is Politics and Guns. And don't forget, hot links are in our show notes, so be sure to stop by the website and check those out.
Also, please check out Kathy Jackson's Cornered Cat training classes. Her next class that has seats available is September 13th and 14th in Culpeper, Virginia. Also remember that in September, there will be a couples class in Centerton, Arkansas with John Hottaway. Go to corneredcat.com for info on all her classes along with other details. Hey Rob, do you have any new posts from your Slowfax blog that you want to mention?
By the time this show is posted on the net, I will. Each month, I collect the unfortunate results of attacks in San Diego County. You may recall that San Diego County has a sheriff named Sheriff Bill Gore. He was sued and is named in the suit now in the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals, Peruta v. Gore. He's sued because he denies the million citizens in San Diego County their right of armed self-defense in public. He says he'll protect us. I document the hundreds of cases every day where our sheriff is wrong.
Bob Main will be on our Saturday show. Bob and Ben Branham will also be doing a training class in Sioux Falls, South Dakota in the spring of 2015. Be sure to tune into this weekend's show for details. Also, speaking of them, look at the Shooters Club by Bob Mayne and Ben Branham. For $75 a year or $6.25 a month, you get 24/7 access to some fantastic training and audio podcasts that, well, you just can't get anywhere else. Also, subscribing from the link in our show notes helps Bob and Ben, and it helps us here at the Polite Society Podcast. So don't forget, Shooters Club by Bob Mayne and Ben Branham.
That wraps up another episode of the Polite Society Podcast. Until the weekend show,
stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road. We'd like to thank our advertisers, ABN Army Surplus, Concealment Solutions, Crusader Weaponry, New Jersey Second Amendment Society, and the Firearms Safety Institute.
I'd like to thank our chat room warriors. Be sure and give us your comments either here or on our Facebook page. We appreciate hearing what you have to say.